Hello, my amazing, brilliant, thoughtful, curious, passionate friends. Today is episode 51 of Stand Up, and my guest today is the returning champion, Wajahat Ali. Very excited to have him back. Let's do it. Welcome to the classroom of life. 3 days a week, I invite the smartest people I know or don't know on to discuss the issues and problems that we face as communities, a nation, a planet, or just on our own. Try to fight apathy and learn along with you. I appreciate you joining me on the journey. Please don't forget to subscribe and give it a rating to the podcast on whatever app you are listening to. And if you haven't considered a paid subscription, today is your day. Go to patreon.com/PeteDominic or PeteDominic.com or just click the link in the show notes here on the podcast. Okay. Joining me today is a man whose TED Talk has been seen by almost 2 million people. He is a CNN contributor. He was a regular guest on my SiriusXM radio show. I worked with him on a panel at the Aspen Ideas Fest a few years ago. He also did stand-up with me there, and even though he's not a stand-up comedian, he did great because he is hilarious. Very thoughtful, intelligent, and sensitive guy who's married with 3 kids. His daughter was diagnosed with liver cancer when she was 2. He talks about it in his TED Talk, and of course he's talked about it on CNN and a number of other media outlets. She had to get a liver transplant. It's a crazy, amazing, inspiring story, and he has become a champion for transplants and helping other people do it. And he's been to hell and back more than once. I have a great deal of admiration and respect for him. And when he joined me the first time here on the podcast in episode 27, you should go back and listen to that if you haven't, he cracked me open and got me to talk about my own personal struggles for the first time publicly. And today we continued our conversation about life, politics, parenting, and more. And this is kind of an idea for a show we want to do, a pilot, if you will. I love talking with him, and we have a great time chatting. I always learn a lot from him. We always laugh a lot, and I think you'll get something or a lot of things from this conversation. You can check him out on Twitter at Wajahat Ali and watch him on CNN and read everything he's writing. Let's get to it. Here's my conversation with my friend who I call Waj.
Pete Dominic.
Wajahat Ali. What's your middle name?
Mirza. Mirza.
That's like a staph infection?
Yeah, it was the precursor to coronavirus. It wiped out all of Persia, and it made its way to America.
I'm already recording.
That's awesome. How are you doing?
Horrible.
That's so no improvement since last time?
Yeah, huge improvement. Actually, had like 6 weeks. Starting, I think, probably with our talk, like a lot of things happened. I opened up, I shared stuff, I got amazing feedback. The universe gave me a hug and gave me perspective, and now I'm catastrophizing again. Like the last 3 days.
Did anything open up
in terms of
money or opportunities?
I mean, I'm slowly doing well with the podcast.
Okay, that's good, man.
But
are you doing it through Patreon?
Yep, Patreon subscribers. People are joining up, and that's really good. But it's you got to sustain that, you got to grow it, and it's so much work to do the 3 podcasts a week, which I love doing. I love doing it, but I'm trying to diversify and write and do speaking and do stand up, and it's just it's work all day long, which is, I'm not complaining about it. It's just scary because you're not guaranteed money when you're working all day long, and I'm not used to that.
I know, man. That's been my life for several years. It's all like an inshallah, God willing, hopefully, and then but then your wife's like, well, inshallah, pay our bills.
Well, when you say that, like, how much is your religion like a basis? Like, is your faith, does it keep you positive? Does it,
Yeah. I mean, it gives me perspective, right? It helps me because I think all it does for me is gives me perspective and makes me realize if things do happen for a reason, and that's a big if, And if my sustenance is guaranteed or written for me, then I will find it will come to me. And then I also believe that I've been through much worse in life, and my faith and also my perspective allowed me to like withstand it, and not crumble. And I emerged out of it, right? And so I think faith, it does give you, like, people say it's a crutch, but everything's a crutch, right? Like, people use alcohol as a crutch. They use
Yeah,
it like,
no, for 100%. I hate religion, but at the same time, if your faith works for you and helps you, I would never be critical of it, like, to you. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for me that way. But why don't we just cut in between here? And when you say, if everything happens for a reason, whether or not that's true, who cares? Why don't we just agree that when something happens, it's maybe our job, our responsibility to find the reason?
maybe find the reason, or maybe also to see it as an opportunity, right, for growth, or see it as a short-term test. But then Islamically, this is interesting. Within Islam, it says that God will not test you with something that you cannot bear. So even the thing that you think will break you, it's like within the Quran, it says it's that this thing that you think will break you will not break you. That's like God's promise to you. It says, I will not burden you with tests that you cannot bear. So even the most unbearable test, right? Like we went through one. In a way, it's like God's promise to you that says, even this, you can hack it. Like, even this, you can take it and emerge.
But what is
and
it?
I'm a merciful, loving God, right? And I will be with you. And so it's a strange way for someone to think, because you could be like, I didn't deserve to get broke, or I didn't deserve to like get sick. I didn't deserve to do this. What type of cruel God is this? But if you put it like on a flip perspective, it's, things happen to people, and compared to overwhelming majority of people, we're very lucky. And I think that's what faith also does, is like it forces you to always keep your focus on optimism and gratitude, at least for me. And then you think it gives you perspective, right? Like, oh, like, despite all this crappy shit happening, I still have a lot of good. I've been through a lot. I believe God is merciful and loving. I have a wife. I have kids. And I can take this, because this is not a burden that I cannot bear. So I don't know if that helps, but that's just my mindset.
I think it helps. I just think it helps. But someone listening or myself had to say, well, how do I put that into a secular framing? And I think it's easy. I think it's whether it comes from God or whether it comes from Scripture. It's the same optimism, like being grateful for what you have. My wife told me to write in a gratification journal, and other people have said that too. You got a roof for your house, you got food, your kids are healthy, blah blah blah. So I think that you can put it in your own framing. But my question back to you is, how do you know if you're broken? How do you know when you're broken? What does that look like? I mean, if you commit suicide, isn't that it? Didn't it break you? Because there's a lot of men committing suicide.
Yeah, but this is where I think, and some people take they use religion as a sword here, and use it to break people, right? They say it like it's a sense of weakness. I don't think so. Like, if you go back to my first point, I think this is important. Like, how do you see your creator? Do you see your creator as a merciful, loving creator? Do you see everyone has their own challenges and their own tests in life, right? Their own gifts, their own privileges, their own hardships, right? I don't know what you're going through. You don't know what I'm going through. So the people who say kill themselves, maybe there was unbearable pain, and maybe God will be merciful to them. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I think that's important is because some people say that, oh, just pray harder and then you'll do better. No, maybe that person has depression and needs to go see a therapist. Oh, maybe you just need to read the scripture more, or maybe they need a hug. So it's a skewed view, I think, of looking at humanity, at God, at yourself. And I think, though, if you use the lens of religion in a way, in my opinion, where you use it not as necessarily as a sword, but as a shield, as a salve to help people, to help yourself, and see it as like a loving God, I think then you could be like, all right, if God, if this thing called God, or let's just call it the universe, whatever, let's call it like the energy force, is looking out for me, and I feel broken, is there an opportunity for me to heal and become better and emerge a better person, right? Is there a second chance for me? And I think that's why the power of religion is so important. Like, if you really think about it, like, so many people seek redemption in some way or form, even the people who aren't like religious, right? They just want to be better. Like, they don't want like the past to like, they don't want like their past sins or even like the failures of life to be constant. So it goes back to the point of, okay, maybe I can reemerge from this. I can have a comeback. I can be better. And I think that's where, if you touched upon it, the gratitude and like writing down things you're grateful for and like a mindfulness, if you really think about it, this stuff's been around for 1,000 of years, perfected through spiritual sciences, whether people want to admit it or not. I don't care if it's Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism. It's like, I read this stuff and I'm like, dude, this is textbook Sufism. Like, this is textbook ancient philosophy and religion. But we've just kind of, like, through the secular realm and lens, have basically just, called it mindfulness and being present. And you see all the research, your wife was telling you this, shows that it actually helps people with their depression, their anxiety, their despondence. So I think, like, no matter what you use for it, like, the tools are pretty similar, man. And I think it's all about, like, it does come back to like what perspective you want to take. And because at the end of the day, man, life is hard and it's challenging. And if we sit there and go like, it's all over, it sucks, then we're broken. We don't give ourselves a second chance. My TED Talk, for what it's worth.
Waj, what is your morning? What is your routine like? Do you have are you routine? Do you have, and does that contribute to your practice, your ability to be resilient?
My morning routine right now is trying to establish a routine.
Oh yeah, there's not you don't have a set thing. And
I've tried. I have really tried. You have little
kids. It's hard.
The little kids. My baby, who's 3 months now, is now waking up every 2 hours to feed because she's a monster. She's a breast milk alcoholic, overdosing on the top shelf milk. She is in my room right now. My son has this early school, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so I have to be the one that gets up early and wakes him up. But what I try to do, though, as a routine is I'll get up, I'll feed my kids, I'll do a prayer, which helps me. I'll make my bed, I'll do some stretches, I'll do the afternoon prayer. Muslims pray like all the time. There's like 5 ritual prayers a day, right? I'll try to eat breakfast or lunch with my kids, and then I'll go and do some work. And then the new routine I have is before coming home, I run. So I try to run 2 to 3 miles, which is nothing. But for me, an old, middle-aged man with a dad bod, the fact that I can run now like up to 3 miles is a nice deal.
That's what I do. I do 3 miles.
Yeah. And 3 miles, 2.5 to 3 miles. I come home, take a nice shower, eat dinner with the family. And the reason that's important is I just want my kids around me as we eat. And I was just reading another article that says like this is another thing that has been shown that like actually helps.
Yeah, it's on. I can attest to that. It's
it helps the family.
There's no amount of value that you can put on the time that you sit with your family. And the only time that they're kind of forced to be with each other is when you're eating, and everything else is kind of manufactured. But you try to make it happen, do things together. But the meals are the best, especially dinner. And I've heard anecdotally from just every single guy that I've talked to about, family values and raising family, that meal is everything. So, and
the average dinner, they say, is 22 minutes. And if you really think about it, you get these precious 22 minutes with your kids.
Yep.
And then they get older. And as they get older, as you know, like, especially when they become teenagers, they don't want to talk to you or like hang out with you. But if you can just like squeeze out, now they're fine because we play, they're like 5, 3, and 3 months. But I'm thinking if I can get like 22 minutes from a teenager a day, and you add it up, that can lead to like a very long-lasting relationship.
I'm in that now, and I can attest to it. And last night we sat down for dinner, and we only do a few times a week now because we're so busy. But it was great. We had a great dinner, and then my daughter, my 12-year-old, disappeared. And after like 15 minutes, and I said, "Where did you go?" And she said, "I'm pooping." And I didn't believe it, because I'm pretty sure she was just escaping to look at the phone with the excuse of going in the bathroom.
That's what we used to do, but we didn't have a phone. We used to do other things as teenage boys.
Excuse herself from dinner to go do those things?
Of course, man. When you're a teenage boy, that's all the time. Didn't you do it all the time? And your mom knew, and everyone knew. It was
Are we
hella
talking
awkward.
about masturbation?
Of course.
From dinner, though? I don't think I ever was like, got up from dinner. I certainly did.
After dinner, and like your parents want you to like linger and talk, and you're like, I gotta go to the bathroom.
After dinner smoke, if you know what I mean, Mom. My mom used to catch me indirectly. She would just say kind of passive aggressive things like, that was a long shower. Or
moms always know, man. Yeah. That's the thing.
My mom's like, where's my lotion? She said that to me once. I was like, come on, you know where it is. I thought I returned it. That was a horrible one. I remember that.
That's the mom.
She might have well just said, you're whacking off with my lotion. But she didn't. She was more thoughtful.
My mom one time said, I know what you're doing in there. And I'm like, I'm just in the bathroom. She's like,
You must be very clean.
The funny thing is, dads don't say anything. Isn't that the funny thing? Dads say nothing. Dad's like always got your back.
Dads are like, change that oil. Change it. Got to keep that moving.
Dads are like, he didn't have enough fiber today. Let the man rest.
So let me ask you, but when you're dealing with all the personal challenges, when you're dealing with your daughter's illness and so on, how do you then deal with the world being so broken? How do you compartmentalize? No.
These are good questions. See, the thing is, I take it like this.
Is the world that broken? That was a leading question. Maybe you don't.
The world has always been broken. Right. The world has always suffered. This is nothing new.
Now we just see it all because we have phones.
Yeah. I mean, when it was like the Black Plague, everyone thought that this is it. God has forsaken us.
Yeah. Imagine how that would have played out on Twitter.
Yeah. There was no hashtag. There was just death. And they blamed the Jews, and then Jews got killed because the conspiracy theory of that day, the Soros conspiracy theory of that day, was that Jews were poisoning the wells. But you can imagine, right? So like in Europe, they were like, what is happening? God has forsaken us. This is not fair. The end is here. And then same thing during the Crusades. The same thing you could have said during the Inquisition. The same thing you could have said with Muslims, who had this amazing empire, and all of a sudden the Mongols came and just like ravaged everything, right? And if you read the literature at that time, people are like, what is this bloodshed, this carnage, this tyranny? What have we done? What curse have we brought upon ourselves, right? And so in our modern day, like, people, I think, are feeling displaced. They're feeling like the center's not holding. There's no control. The institutions are failing. I mean, it is a unique situation where the promises of like this post-World War II America, like middle-class America, and if you just work hard and pull yourself from the bootstraps, everything will be fine. And now, like, there's a young generation, right? And this is what's interesting about America. They're like, I did everything right, and all your stupid ideologies and institutions failed me. So F you capitalism, because you're telling me capitalism's awesome, but I can't afford college, and if I can't afford college, I can't afford the student debt. And F you, this free market, which is like, it burdened me. And F you democracy. You take it a step further, even democracy.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
No, but I'm saying, like, all the institutions, they're like, what has it brought us? It brought us Trump. And so, I mean, go ahead. You're talking about health, even healthcare, right? People are like, what the hell is this? Is this as good as it gets in America? So it's like this unique, I don't want to shy away from the very unique challenges that we are facing, while also trying to put it in context to answer your question that, for me, I realize that humankind has always been in this type of struggle, where they feel like it's over, it's broken, this is the worst, like Armageddon is near. Just read the literature. They always felt like the world was ending. But now we have climate change.
Right.
And we have social media, right? And so for me, like, when this is happening with my daughter, to answer your question, it's like, I don't know if I've shared this with you before. It's like, first and foremost, when it happens to your kid, the prayer you first make to the universe or to God is like, my life for hers. You do a trade. And the prayer is not answered. And you realize the prayer is not going to be answered. So you fight because you have a kid. The second thing you say is, okay, I'm saving my kid, and we've brought kids into this world that I've just described. What's the point? And then for me, it's, again, goes back to your first question, how we start off this conversation, like, perspective is, I think as a father now, I'm 39. I think to myself, I have three options, right? I don't know how you think about this as a dad. Am I Hodor from Game of Thrones? Do I hold the door from, I know for those of you who have seen Game of Thrones, like this, it's this large man whose entire purpose in life is to literally sacrifice his body to hold the demons at bay so the kids can escape, right? That's like literally his only purpose. So is that our job? Are we Hodor? Or do we just sacrifice ourselves to give our kids a chance to like run away from the white nationalists? And are we janitors whose job is to clean up all the shit, our forefathers' shit and our own shit, so our kids have somewhat of a chance? Or am I a gardener? Do you get to plant a seed and enjoy that fruit before you die?
I want to be a gardener.
I mean, we want to be a gardener, right?
Yes.
But I think our job, if we have to be honest with ourselves, is all three. And then that's why I do it, because I think our kids deserve a shot. Because like, what's the opposite? What's the alternative? You become cynical, you become nihilistic, and you give up, and it's over. And I think that's what I keep going back to. Like, the alternative to everything that I've said, to people listening are like, whatever, man, you're crazy. You stupid Muslims, or you people who are optimistic. Like, the alternative is cynicism and nihilism, and that's death. And so I'm choosing life over death.
I love it. I love what you just said. I love the way that you think about these things, and I love the way that you talk about them as well. And I think it really helps. It really helps frame so much of what I'm going through, what you've been going through, and what a lot of people are listening are going through. And I happen to agree with your outlook as well. I mean, in terms of the nihilism and the cynicism equaling death, I agree with that. I mean, a lot of people just think, what's it all for? And we're just here to suffer and give up. I have those moments. I feel that way sometimes, but I have to move past it, because I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live in that space. Think like that. Horrible.
It's horrible, man. And the thing is, we have such limited time also, right?
Oh,
so you're like, okay.
It's over right. In a blink. My friend said that to me recently. He's like, you can sit there and be upset and worried and spend a lot of time in that space. He goes, but it is over in a blink. And it really hit me when he said it that way.
Have you ever buried anyone?
Yeah, but not. Yes, when I was 20, my friend, and then people older than me. I think it's. Why do you ask? Because I think it's different when you bury people who are older than you and die at a quote natural time versus people who don't.
Yeah, no, but have you ever so for the Muslim burial, it's you take, there's like usually the people who are close to the person who passed away, like usually three men, literally go into the grave first, and then like the community like takes turns like carrying the body, and then they lower the body into the grave, and you like kind of catch it, and then you put them down, right? So I did that for my grandmother. I was the first one in, last one out, and it was really interesting. My grandmother was she had degenerative arthritis in her knee, so she was like a heavy woman. And I was the first one to kind of catch her, literally standing in the grave. And I thought, oh, she'd be really heavy. But I remember this. It just stuck with me. She was so light. There was like just a lightness. And then I put her down, literally in the dirt. And all she had was a shroud, like a white shroud, right? And so you get out of the grave, and then you throw the dirt, and then that's it. And I just remember, like, it's all the stuff we kind of worry about, like just like that, it's done, man. And then, and then just the way, to quote Robert Frost, life, it goes on. People stick around, and then some people say, okay, I got to go pick up my kid. And other people say, I got to go back to work. And then other people are thinking, all right, what about my groceries? And then it's done. And the people who linger, and the people who linger, or the people who remember, are the ones, if you're lucky, who loved you. Those are the ones who remember you. And so I think that, I know that sounds morbid to some people, but to answer your question, which is like been the first, like this question of like what keeps us going on in faith and like perspective, I do think about death a lot, not in a morbid way, but in a way that like I have limited time.
Yeah, a motivating way.
Yeah, a motivating way. What is life really worth? What's really meaningful to me? What's important? And I don't know about you, but like we've talked about this before. I have had money. I have lost money. I have had health. I have lost health. I've been through a lot of stuff. But you wake up and you go, I'm alive. I'm alive. There's another day. I have a wife who loves me, who like is way smarter than me and like hotter than me, and I have no idea why she's married to me. And I got these 3 kids, and the kids are lovely and sweet. And my daughter. Every day I say this. Like, talked to my wife last night, like at 1 a.m. We're just looking at our daughter. Right, there's all these challenges, but I'm like, and we're just having the same conversation. Actually, you and I are having. And I said, listen, she's alive. Every day I look at her, I'm like, she's alive. I have no idea how many more days we have with her like this. Like, there's so many complications, but look at her. The tube's out. She's having a great time. She's wearing her dress. She was running around, being feisty, ate her cinnamon toast crunch. Like, this is the win. And my wife's like, yeah, that's right. This is the win. We just have to be grateful every day. So I think for people like us sometimes, or people like you who are stuck in a situation, there's no shame in just literally taking it day by day and like just being grateful for what you have and building it. And then nothing really lasts too, right? Like, wealth doesn't last, health doesn't last, man. And even and I think the flip is the same, right? Like, so like, just because you're on top doesn't mean you're gonna stay on top. And just because you're on the bottom doesn't mean you're always going to stay at the bottom. And if we give up faith in that, then it's over. Then it's like, what motivation do you have to even go on and wake up in the morning, right?
Yeah, my wife actually has a phrase for that. What you just said about how the only constant in life is that it's constantly changing. Was that it? I'm looking for it right now because I tweeted it out.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And that's exactly what you're saying. By the way, you've been sharing pictures of your family, and it is true that your wife is a very attractive woman, and it's true that my wife is a very attractive woman. But I feel like you're an equally as attractive guy, and maybe you're just you forgot, you don't know that because you were a fat kid, but apparently everybody thinks you're a very good looking guy, and I do too. I feel like you have leading man looks, so I don't feel like it's true that you aren't like that. You're in a mismatch. I think I'm in a mismatch. I don't think I'm a bad looking guy, but my wife.
You are definitely in a mismatch. That is true.
Yeah.
This we will agree on.
Okay, but
yeah.
Is it possible that you aren't? Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think there's any shock there. But
I know everyone says I am. No. If you knew my wife, I'm totally in a mismatch.
Yeah, but you're on TV a lot and everything, and I think people find you sexy.
I think only you find me sexy.
No, I think you've got that kind of dark leading man face going on.
If I could only use it, Pete, but I've wasted it. My mom says I've wasted my face. She says
so? You're on TV, dude. What do you mean?
She goes because I'm always a mess. I look scrubby and I like dress like a Karachi uncle. So my mom always used to be like, Allah gave you such a nice features and you wasted it. And I'm like, thank you, mother. And and I was a fat kid. See, when you're a fat kid, we talked about this before. When you're a fat kid for the rest of your life, you always think you're a fat kid.
I know,
like
that's what I'm saying.
Your mind's eye.
You need to move past that is what I'm saying.
One day.
Well, let me ask you this. What about, we have these fascinating conversations and I'm psyched that I get to record them and share them. And from our first conversation, a lot of people said, you guys should do that more and you should do something together. But my question for you is, how often do you have conversations like this with other men? Who are the men in your life? Do you have, I mean, like I could forgive you for not having a lot of men in your life right now. Cause again, that happens when you have little kids. There's not a lot of time for friendship, but do you have males in your life that you have conversations similar to the one that we've been having here that we continue to have?
That's a very good question. I unfortunately do and do not. What I mean by that is I have cultivated a few dude friends where if I wanted to talk like this, I could. And, they share things and we're trying to, for the, I think past 2 years, there's a group of us who have around the same age who realize like this is very important.
Yeah.
And so we've been trying to nurture that space, if you will. And I know some people might be rolling their eyes at this stuff, but they shouldn't, because women talk about this. Like, society allows women to cry openly and no one judges them, right? Of course, there's a double standards that we say, oh, they're hysterical and oh, they're so emotional. Yeah. And you see that unfortunately happening out right now in the 2020 elections. But at the same time, like, society still allows it, right? Like, society doesn't allow men just to cry. Like why the F are you crying? Oh man, I'm down right now. Like, what do they say? They say, man up. The guy goes, oh, I'm sorry. And then he becomes depressed and like an alcoholic. And there's so many men who are suffering. Quietly.
I want to, but so what's the space? Like, I want to create a space for that. I don't know what it is, but like a show, a group therapy, a place where people can, just this conversation that you and I are having right now, I know is going to make a lot of people, especially men, feel comfortable and not alone. And so I want to create that. But for you guys right now, like, what is this group like? How do you know them? And do you?
Yeah. So, I think you might be onto something, and you could pull it off, because actually, that's something you should explore. Actually,
I am exploring. I'm trying to figure out how it can be done, technically, and how it works, and if there's a way to monetize it. Because I want to be the male Oprah, and what I mean by that is I don't want to be the guy with the answers. I just want to be the guy facilitating the conversation. Because especially while I'm in the suck, not where once it's over and you follow my 5 steps, you won't be sleeping in your van like I did anymore. It's like, no, I want to talk about it while I'm in it, because like you said earlier, it comes and it goes, and I don't want to act like everything is wonderful now ever. It's never the case.
Yeah, and there's always challenges, and it doesn't dads dealing with teenagers or depression or
every
rebounding,
jobs,
second career in life. Yeah, like that'd be
addiction.
Huge, man. I to answer your question though, and I think this is, you might be in the same situation. My wife has mentioned this. She goes, a lot of your close friends, the ones who are like close to you, the ones it seems like you really like lean on, are women. She goes, that's interesting. And that was the case. I think it shifted for me in my late 20s. It's only because of trust. The ones I could trust were the few women in my life who were my friends, because that space didn't develop with the dudes. It just didn't. And I'm probably to blame too, because I didn't open up. And some of my friends who've known me my whole life have said, that's the problem with you, Waj, is like, you're really friendly and you're nice, but like, I never get to really know you. Like, I don't know.
That's surprising.
With you. Isn't that interesting? Because I don't open up, actually, to be honest. I'm trying.
Tell that to the first part of this conversation and our last conversation.
Yeah, but like, this is me trying to learn, because I just, it's been a work in progress for like 10 years. I'm trying. And so there is this lack, or let me put it this way. If I said this when we were last on your show, like, God forbid if I'm sick, I'm the type of guy who will just like suffer quietly. And then like the day before my death, I'll write like this essay, and then I'll just tweet out, hey guys, I'm dying tomorrow. Thanks for everything. Bye. But here, read my essay, which is not healthy, but that's just how I am. But I have my wife, which is good, but you need more than just your wife. I think.
Yes.
I think dudes need like dude friends who they can talk to about this, and then I mean, it's so telling, right? Because even thinking about it makes me uncomfortable. Why is it making me uncomfortable? It shouldn't make me uncomfortable. But I think
there are so many different problems that we all have. I have a listener who's become a friend, like many others, whose daughter has an illness where she's afraid of germs everywhere, and it's like a mental thing, and she doesn't want to eat and she doesn't want to drink, and it's like every day, and it's so psychological. It's so much different than your daughter's illness, which is cancer. It's like he's so desperate to change her thinking because it's a mental issue. And other than that, things are pretty good for him, but that's every day. Every day, that's what he is dealing with. And he shared that with me. And it gave me such a great perspective. You sharing your daughter's illness gives me such a great perspective. That's what I meant to say. And now I had a small technical difficulty, ran out of memory, lost about a minute of the conversation, but we started talking about male friendship and loneliness and why it's important. And let's pick it up with that, Waj.
Especially men. And then they have these cardiac arrests at the age of 58, and people wonder what happened.
Loneliness, it's a killer. It literally is a killer. And as you said, I just want to reiterate, social media is making it worse, ironically.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Because
you see everybody having a good time, but you.
Yeah, like Instagram. Instagram is the worst. It's like
the worst.
Everyone's eating something delicious and traveling somewhere with their feet on the beach, and I don't have a job.
I shared a picture of myself outside my therapist's office. That's what I need to start sharing. Just pictures of me being alone and sad. You're not alone. Here's me in the woods.
But that's good. I mean, did you actually share a photo of your therapist?
I did.
That's really good, man.
And what I didn't realize is, I didn't even realize this, is that there's a white noise machine outside the therapist's office, and that's very common. And I didn't even know that everybody started commenting on that. Oh, my therapist has a white noise machine outside her office. So like, oh, I guess that's when you're waiting outside, you can't hear the person before you, because that's going right in my stand-up act. Every time I walk out of the therapist, there's some other poor son of a bitch just sitting there, and I try not to look at him because I don't need him to look at me. And I don't want to think about his shit. He doesn't want to think about mine. You know, you're there. That interaction with the person waiting is.
I'm not here. I'm just saving a seat for my wife.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problems. I'm just.
I don't have problems. I'm cool. My wife sent me.
Like, well, yeah.
There was a boulder.
I was forced.
Yeah, a boulder fell on my foot, and I came here.
That's where the pain is from. Yeah. Oh, I thought this was an orthopedist. What is this? I'm out of here.
You could do a whole section because of that awkward glance. Like, just keep your eyes down. It's another dude. You just keep walking. Keep walking.
Exactly.
No, it's good, man. It's look, everything works. Like, we all have our challenges. Like, we all have our challenges. That's the interesting point. Like, you think the person that you think is really happy, you realize, and my wife and I have talked about this a lot, right? Because we've gone through a lot. Like, you think, oh, look, that person has everything. Yeah, except a happy marriage. Oh, that person has everything except his son hates him. Oh, that person has everything. Yeah, except that they're lonely. You know, like, everyone has something in life, a challenge, I think.
What about Jared Kushner?
Jared Kushner is a moron, and that's his burden that he has to bear.
That's what he has?
I think, no, I feel like he knows, and he'll always know that he has inherited everything that has been given to him, that no one respects him, that no matter how hard he tries to flex, they laugh at him behind his back.
You just diagnosed exactly where he is lacking. That's great. Yes, he's got to know that.
And that must kill you. I mean, as a man, think about it. Sure. Like, that must, like,
it's not your fault that you were born into tremendous wealth for anybody. It's not your fault, but it's what you do with it that is what defines your character and your legacy, if that's what you care about.
Yeah, and like, you can't force people to respect you. Like, they'll pretend, like you know, in front of your face, but he knows behind their back. He reminds me of, like, remember that movie Gladiator, Joaquin Phoenix's character?
Yep.
He's like that. Like, I think he's like that, but probably, no, I was going to say less cruel, but I think he's cruel also. I think that whole family's cruel.
Yeah.
So that's his downfall, right? Like, you'll have all the wealth, you'll have the wife, you'll have the power. Nobody will ever respect you. And that's also, I think, what kills Trump, is that no matter what happens, Obama will always be more loved.
Always. Has to be. Yeah. Including by his own family, you know. Yeah. I mean, it's.
And that must kill him. Like, no matter what I do, no matter how much I try to erase this man, they will always love this black man.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It's we think, quote, normally, and he probably doesn't. He's such a sociopath. And
I don't think the reason why I don't think he's a sociopath is because he cares too deeply. Trump
about himself,
just everything about himself, about, like, what people think about him, his image. He's cruel, but I think he feels, and because he feels so deeply, and he has so much self-loathing at the end of the day, and I think he knows he's a fraud. Because the only person, like, Trump behaves the way he does because he's deeply insecure. Very secure men do not behave like Trump. They behave the opposite of Trump. They walk on this earth like you know, like they're floating, because they don't really need to flex. This guy needs to flex in every tweet. So there's something inside him, like I think since the beginning, gnawing at him that you're not that smart. You're a vulgarian. You're not that good at business. You were handed down everything. You squandered it. They won't love you. You didn't win the Emmy. You have a fake Time magazine cover in your office. Like, who does that, right? That is, like, a really sad place to be, like, inside his head.
Yeah.
But he's the president, and so we're living in this nightmare.
And not to mention, you know, he probably knows his wife doesn't like him, and all his wives haven't liked him, which leads me to my final question for you, getting back to the personal. I'm going to put you on the spot, not that you won't answer pretty much any question, but that maybe you can't come up with this easy. But getting back to marriage, you guys have obviously dealt with tremendous adversity in terms of the illness of your daughter and so on, and overcoming all of that. But is there any general advice that you've taken or been given, that a phrase or a practice that helps your marriage, helps you guys overcome the quarrels, the conflicts, the fights, the hard times, the cyclical arguments? Is there any advice that you have for married couples that has worked for you? Because I'll give you mine. You want mine?
Yeah, you go first. You've been married longer than me.
Well, it's a phrase that I learned, I think, from my wife. She told me this in a heated moment. She said, you need to ask me how you can support me. You think you're supporting me. You think you're giving me everything I need, but ask me, how can I support you? What does my support look like to you? Because I know what it looks like to me supporting you, but what does my support look like to you? What would it look like? And that's been invaluable to ask her what it looks like, as opposed to assume that I'm doing everything right and supporting her and listening to her and giving her whatever she needed in our marriage.
And that's very similar to me also. I think it's where men falter sometimes, as my wife said, like, can you ask me what I need? Because I do so much that, and I know, because she says, I think because I do everything and it just happens, you think that this stuff just happens magically, but you might not realize that I'm the one doing it.
Yes.
And as a dude, I was like, why don't you just ask me? I'll do anything you want. Just ask me. And she goes, I know I could just ask you, but if you could ask me, or if you could just show me, or if you could just say, hey, what can I do to help you? You let me know. It's very similar. And then I said, oh, okay. And she knew I wasn't coming from a malicious place at all. I think it's just that dude radar that just is kind of faulty.
Yeah.
And because we're dudes, we're like, if Pete wants something, he'll just tell me. Why didn't you just tell me?
Yes. Yes.
Just talk to me. You want the dishes done? I'll do the dishes. Why don't you tell me? And she's like, I was hoping that you would see that the dishes weren't done, and I was doing the dishes, and you would see that I had a baby, and then you would do the dishes. I'm like, oh.
You would see that I had a baby.
I was
that makes you sound like a monster. Your wife's over there holding the baby, doing dishes with one hand. You're over on the corner of the counter, smoking a cigarette.
Playing video games. No, I realize this made me sound like a terrible person. No, but that's what it is, right? Because I think often, not always, but often, married women who also work and also have kids, they're superheroes. They do everything. And I think sometimes just the way that the dudes are is we take things for granted, and we need something to be very direct and blunt. And I think our wives shoulder a lot of that and just kind of wait for us to ask, but we never do. So I think that is, that has helped my marriage. I know my wife has really appreciated it. And I know on the flip side, speaking as a man, I tell my wife, you just have to communicate with me and tell me. And she goes, okay. And then so when she says, yo, X, Y, and Z, I'm like, got it. And so I think most marriages where things fall apart is the husband and wife stop communicating openly. And in that space, there's resentment that builds and simmering anger until one day it explodes over something allegedly minor, but it's not minor. It's just the catalyst for this underlying problem.
Well
and then
said. Yes.
And you see that relationship fall apart.
Yep. You think it's a small thing, but it's much bigger. It's a festering problem. All right, I'm gonna let you go.
All right, man. Thank you, sir.
I've taken enough of your time, but I gotta say, the way I was feeling this morning is a lot different than the way I feel, or at the beginning of our conversation is different than the way I feel after our conversation. I appreciate that a lot.
No, man. Likewise. We're on this journey together. I'm a fan as always, and I'm glad that the podcast is taking off.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your help with it. This is great. Thank you very much, Waj.
Until next time, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, that conversation went all over the place, huh? Did you like it? Would you listen to that if we did something like it once a week? Maybe even watch it if we launched it on YouTube? Waj and I are definitely talking about doing something together. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be fun. And I think we could all get a lot out of it. I think men need to have this conversation that we're having and be able to listen to and contribute to this conversation. And I think women want us to have this conversation, frankly, if I do say so myself. So if you'd listen to a regular podcast or YouTube show or something, because we're at the very beginning stage of just talking about this idea, then let me know and let him know. Tweet him at Wajahat Ali. I'm at Pete Dominic. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, give it a rating, and consider a paid subscription. You can link to that. There's a link to it in the show notes. Or go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic or just PeteDominic.com, where you can find it all there. All right, sorry this one is so short. We didn't have any extras. I want to have as many different guests as I can on these shows. I want to make them a little longer and do all kinds of things with them. But it takes a lot of work and a lot of time, and we're going to just keep on doing it. 3 podcasts a week. Soon, extras that only Patreon members are going to get. I know you're itching for that, and you deserve that. Thank you so much for your support. Tell your friends, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday right here on the Stand Up with Pete Dominic podcast.